toujours un plaisir de vous voir aussi nombreux.
It's a pleasure to see you here in such great numbers.
Nous allons y revenir lors de cette matinée, un signe du succès.
I see this as a sign of success of this program and also the esteem in which it is held, and we'll see that throughout the course of the afternoon. Now, we are at a pivotal moment as reflections on the next multi-annual financial framework take shape. This conference is the opportunity to hear from all our partners, stakeholders and InvestEU beneficiaries. So, in other words, to hear from you on the work that has been done, but also on the lessons that we can draw from that, looking to the future. Since it was launched in 2021, the InvestEU programme has been in the vanguard of efforts undertaken by the European Union when it comes to competitiveness and resilience, whether it be in mobilising investments in sustainable infrastructure, offering attractive funding solutions for SMEs and innovation actors, or supporting skills promotion and job creation in all European regions. InvestEU has been delivering since 2021, and its added value lies in the nature of the tool itself. It's a budgetary guarantee that facilitates de-risking and, in so doing, attracts more private investment. By the end of 2024, InvestEU had mobilised almost €300 billion in investments, two-thirds of which came from the private sector. Two-thirds from the private sector. And all of that based on an initial stake, if I can put it that way, of €26.2 billion. Now that's what I call value for money. When we look at the margins, the capacity of our investment and the leveraging effect that it has with regard to investment. Furthermore, I'd like to point out that demand for the union guarantee has exceeded the available budget by a great deal, to the point that the budget is almost entirely used up, even though it still has 3 years left to run. In February, in tandem with my work and DG GROW and the EIB, the Commission proposed a major amendment to the InvestEU regulation to enable more effective use of existing resources. The aim of this is to increase the EU guarantee by an additional €2.5 billion. This will make it possible to mobilise an additional €50 billion in public and private investment. So this call was received very positively in the Parliament and throughout the private sector. Moreover, we encourage the use of the member state compartment. I'm sure some of you are very familiar with that. Thanks to that compartment, InvestEU has attracted an unprecedented amount of €2 billion in extra funding coming from 7 member states, and that has allowed them to mobilise financial instruments to respond precisely to their specific needs. All of this has been possible thanks to our partners. I'm thinking in particular of the EIB group, who have been working with us steadfastly to ensure a swift, dynamic implementation of the programme. The EIB has always stepped up to the plate when it has come to developing new products and moving into new sectors. And I note with great satisfaction, dear Nadia Calvino, the impetus that you personally are driving to align the priorities of the European Commission and the EIB. I'm thinking in particular of the increased importance attached to raw materials, which is a sector in which we had been not investing enough in recent years, but it is a strategic, crucial sector for our transition and also for our European sovereignty. This flexibility truly is one of the strengths of InvestEU. Indeed, while the 4 policy windows reflect the long-term priorities identified at the time the programme was set up, it has been necessary to respond to numerous crises and to reinvent the programme constantly. There has hardly been an announcement in these recent years that hasn't included a substantial InvestEU contribution. This flexibility, this ability to adapt to new challenges has always been developed in tandem with our partners. So, in addition to the EIB, a key actor for us, I would also like to commend the international financial institutions and national development banks. Thanks to the open architecture of the programme, we currently work with 17 partners. These are different partners spread across various member states, and we have benefited from their deep roots in all sectors and in the local areas throughout Europe. This has enabled expertise to be pooled and for these actors to adopt a European focus, which I welcome. This in turn has facilitated a further increase in the leveraging effect of the programme, and this must be taken into account, including when we discuss the future and the future of this programme specifically. However, InvestEU is much more than a fund, and the leveraging effect with regard to the private sector is not merely financial. InvestEU is also an advisory platform for project owners. It is a portal that connects startups who are just starting out with investors by giving them visibility and routes to financing. Now, to summarize, which is a difficult job to do, to summarize the ingredients of this success, I would point to mobilizing private investment, supporting companies throughout their investment journey, thanks in particular to the products and services provided by experienced partners, and market credibility. And this is exactly what we need when we look to the next MFF. And even today and this week, we will discuss this because the College of Commissioners this week is dedicating a first discussion to this new MFF framework. And that, of course, leads me on to looking towards the future. President von der Leyen, and this is reflected in the title of the conference, has announced that the European Competitiveness Fund in the next MFF. With my colleague Piotr Serafin, I will have responsibility for this fund. And since the current EU budget was agreed, the world has changed radically. It seems to be changing on the other side of the Atlantic by the hour. EU financing must have ever more impact on our competitiveness. EU financing must be easier to access and allow for projects to be developed more effectively. Our financing must be adapted to new geopolitical realities and must be ambitious so as to be on a par with Europe's desire to be an industrial and innovative power on the global stage. Now, I don't want to take too much time, so I would just like to focus on some key points, some key concepts at this point in the context of your discussions today as we look to the next MFF and the Competitiveness Fund. Firstly, there's a need for more efficiency gains. Now, that's not to say the programme isn't effective, but given the geopolitical situation, that's changing all the time. We need more flexibility so as to have efficiency gains. And today, sources of financing for better competitiveness are fragmented. We need to bring those financing streams together into unique single investment capacity. The aim of that is to invest massively in strategic sectors, from AI to space, from clean tech to biotech. And it goes without saying that this also includes research and innovation. Next, there must be a much more strategic focus. We must rectify our shortcomings when it comes to competitiveness, for example, in the areas of scaling up and bringing to the market the innovations that are the result of the excellence of our researchers. Every euro must be spent in the most efficient way possible to improve our competitiveness by releasing private, institutional and national investments. Every euro must be an investment in the future of our creators and our entrepreneurs in Europe. Our innovative startups and scale-ups must be able to access financing to develop in Europe and not have to leave Europe to receive financing on the other side of the Atlantic. And too often that is the case currently. That's what's happening. To achieve this, we must support European companies and projects throughout their investment journey, from the laboratory to manufacturing. We can no longer relax our support during the critical scale-up phase. And this is a critical issue for companies when it comes to European manufacturing. I'm thinking of what's been happening lately with batteries, for example. It's young businesses, young industries that need support measures. As these companies go through a difficult but necessary process to ensure our European sovereignty and our ability to produce in Europe. There's also a vital need to redouble efforts to simplify access to our financing. That should be one of the conditions governing the new European Competitiveness Fund for the MFF. Now, what's the future of InvestEU in all of this, you might ask? Well, the Competitiveness Fund should be underpinned by our entire financial toolbox. I'm thinking in particular of subsidies, loans, own resources and public contracts. In particular, we have an obligation to mobilize private financing, and InvestEU fits perfectly into that new, coherent architecture. And that's an architecture that promotes process from research right the way through to industrial manufacturing and production. Now, the best way to achieve this is not yet set in stone. There are a lot of discussions that still have to be had on this issue. So I would invite you today to share your ideas with us. How can we make the financing from the European Union more adapted to support companies throughout their investment journey? How can we increase further the leveraging effect of public funds to mobilize private investment? How can we achieve greater impact and better synergy between those funds? So those are all the questions that you have been and will be addressing today. Ladies and gentlemen, those are the introductory comments that I wanted to share with you. I would like to thank you for your attention, and above all, I wish you an excellent conference. I hope it's very productive, and I'm sure there will be very interesting ideas that will come out of the conference that we will look at in this vital stage. Thank you.